Hi everyone, this is Pinky Diokno, and with me is Jerry Plana, who is the President of Investors in People Philippines. Welcome to Transitions and Transformation, which is a podcast of the Investors in People Philippines. Today we're going to feature innovation, which, as you know, leading organizations have been embedding in order to sustain and strengthen their future. So we'll feature today a well-known company, very popular, very reputable as far as world-class solutions in infrastructure are concerned. So we'd like to welcome Mr. Caloy Salonga, who I go a long way back with and who I hold in very high regard. Caloy will talk to us about what they've done as far as embedding the innovation culture in First Balfour. He is the head of HR of First Balfour. Caloy, so tell us more about what you do.
I lead the HR team, and I try to continuously shape our culture. One of the things that they've started giving me as a title is the architect of culture. Personally, I think my role there is to stimulate change. I think part of the innovation culture that you were talking about starts from basically that. Trying to get people to understand why it is an imperative for survival.
You know, Caloy, I've had the good fortune of witnessing what you do in First Balfour. And I have to say, you've really gone a long way as far as innovation is concerned. What triggered all of that?
I think one of the things that we've always looked back to is, I guess you go back to is your values. If you recall, one of our core values in First Balfour is the pioneering entrepreneurial spirit. And from there, we try to extend the definition. What does it really mean? For a construction company to really progress and be competitive, you're going to have to always look at new ways of doing things. And innovation is at the very center of that. Part of our strategy is to try and connect that with the future. You cannot survive. That's it. You either innovate or you die, as they say. Because it's just so clear in terms of what the world is doing, in terms of how they're approaching the problems of today. And we connect that now, from that value, we connected that to our new chosen path. Right? And to really build collaborative pathways to a regenerative and decarbonized world. Those two statements, the decarbonized and regenerative world, invites a lot of thinking, new thinking. And you cannot understand it or really deploy it unless you really introduce innovation. So it just fell into place. So it's not like it was purposive, that we were deliberate on that. It just happened, right? That when we were looking at that particular direction, it really just gave more impetus to innovation as the way forward. Because you cannot solve today's problems or tomorrow's problems with the solutions that you're applying today. It's so evident. And the change is so fast that most people don't realize it, but I think there's just so much change that's happening, and you get to be overwhelmed. So we try to make it a deliberate initiative on our part, to really create the structure, a platform for innovation to really get going inside the organization.
What's interesting about what you said is that, you know, it was aligned with the core value that you had. Entrepreneurial spirit, right? Okay, and you know, how did you get that started?
I think the initiative started when we tried to revisit the vision. That was in maybe 10 years ago. We started to craft a new vision. And I think part of it was trying to revisit the old values. So what is it that you really wanted to be? We're a small company compared to the other bigger construction companies here in the Philippines. And when we said we wanted to make a difference in this country, we had to think of, so how are we going to do it? So we're going to have to do it differently, not just grow by size or volume or taking on more projects, but coming across with different solutions for the customer, the client base. And that's what got us started. So how are we going to do it? So we're going to have to partner with bigger organizations, international, because they were starting to come in, international construction companies, and learn the new technologies. And we have to be more. I guess we have to make a choice in the construction areas, no, the marketplaces that we chose. We were very deliberate about not going into the mass market, meaning high-rise buildings. So because we knew that the margins were, it was already a crowded market and the margins were thin. So we looked at the different market segments, and that's where renewable energy became a very, very attractive. When we looked at the dynamics of the renewable energy space, we also saw that there is going to be a lot of opportunity in those heavy infrastructure type of markets because there are few players. There are fewer players, and it will require high levels of capability. And that's what started us to get into looking. And to play in that market, you have to be very innovative, right? You have to be more advanced. You have to be more, I guess, curious about new ways of doing things. So let me give you an example. Very few people know that there is a tunnel underneath Commonwealth Avenue. It's a 7-kilometer tunnel underneath Commonwealth Avenue. And we used what we call a tunnel boring machine to dig under 50 meters deep. So try to imagine 50 meters deep. It's almost as high as this building. It's like 7 stories high. Right? Below the ground, under Commonwealth Avenue, from Balara, which is in Quezon City, right, near UP, all the way to La Mesa Dam. So there's a tunnel that exists there, and we use a tunnel boring machine. And we partnered with a tunnel boring machine company, and we got that done during the pandemic. Right? So it's one of those things. Like, so if you're going to look at remarkable projects, that was and daring and bold projects, that's one of the things that we do. But not many people know about that. Right? But our whole company, when you tell that story, of course, they're very proud of it. Because it's one of those new things, new approaches to really solving the water problem of the future.
Caloy, let me just ask you, who played a key role in, in building the innovation?
I think
culture?
I have to credit my president, or now the vice chairman, Mr. Fernandez, for doing that. He's the first guy who's always asking that question. What are we going to do next? What are we going to do differently? I think he was the one that would also be very, very adamant about not solving today's problem with the same solution. You have to figure out a different solution. We used drones, no? Drones before. And before, when the drones were still very new, about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, it was a very, very new thing for us. And then he said, no, get the young ones to study the drones, to use it. Use it for taking pictures of our projects. So now, today, all projects, all about 30, 35 projects, have their own drones, and they take pictures of the project. It's become so common already. You cannot have a project and not have a drone picture. And so we've lost a lot of drones because sometimes they get into trouble flying those drones in the beginning, but now it's so common. He said, you want to create a picture of who you are and what you do, and the image you want to project to your customers is that you're not the ordinary construction company. And one way of doing that is being able to demonstrate using these simple technologies. It didn't make the whole project more productive, but it created that image that you are more advanced in the way you approach the problems of the client. So, yeah, and he keeps on pushing that. So, digital technology today, right? The big thing is AI. So it's now pushing us. So what's AI? What's our application? What's our new solution? And when we started scanning the environment, when we started looking at those solutions, there's a whole lot already going on for the construction industry. So that's the next exciting stage. And right now, we just went through that workshop of trying to understand what AI really is and what it can do for the construction. Now there's a whole initiative in the company directed at introducing artificial intelligence into the way we do work. And I can see it, even for HR in particular. It's funny because he said HR should be the first one to deploy it. And I was saying, yeah, but how? And then we started researching, and it's interesting how they've developed the chatbot into an agent, an AI agent, whom you can talk to now. So it's now just a question of feeding the script, the data, and they will be able to answer any employee's question. If they don't know the answer to the question, they'll refer you to a live person. So, interesting. Okay, so that makes life a lot easier. So it's him. He's the one pushing. He's the one always introducing us to this new approach.
Jerry, before you ask your question, before I lose it, you used the word exciting. I'm just curious, how did you excite people to, put forward innovative ideas?
The profile of First Balfour today is almost 70% are millennials and Gen Zs. And we have this program called the management training. So we addressed it to the management training to start thinking of those solutions. So that's when it started to get traction.
Yeah, yeah.
Other than that, I think it is also deploying it to what we call the leaders conference. We bring all the senior leaders together and we talk about innovation. So now there is a special unit. There was a unit that was created that was really meant for digital transformation.
Right.
So that's how we got it started and got the young people. Well, today it's the young people that really drive
Sure.
most of these changes.
Yeah.
And the reality is, they won't stay with you if they don't see that inside the culture. If the culture is very rigid and there's no
Yeah.
room for change,
Right.
they're not going to stay. They'll just
Right.
pack up their bags and go.
Yeah, well, I am interested to know if you were to summarize the strategy that you have for building this so-called innovative culture. How would you describe, in
I think-
simple terms, that's
I think the
strategy?
first and most important is link it to your business strategy. Why is it important? Why is it essential? Right? Why is innovation essential to success?
Yeah.
Once you're able to do that and define the different layers of the organization and be able to explain how this all fits in the long-term competitive strategy of the business, then it will gain traction. The second element is communicating directly with people about why it is important. I mean, fine, you can come out with all of these memos or digital announcement, but that's not going to cut it. It's going to have to be face to face, right? I know it's tedious, but I'd rather that you spend your time explaining to the people why that's important and why it's okay to make mistakes, especially that part
Yeah,
where it's okay to make mistakes. No one's going to get burned just because you didn't try. The more painful consequence is when you don't even try. It's already failing, and you keep on repeating the process. It's not as productive, but you keep on doing it because you don't even want to try. So that's why it's important to go out there and do face-to-face
Yeah.
conversations with people to explain what this whole thing is all about.
yeah,
It's not just a newfangled thing that you want to introduce.
yeah. We all understand how typical traditional organizations are really built for performance, no? For scaling, things like that. And when an organization such as yours decide to take innovation very seriously, and this is about change and innovation, what were some of the early hurdles that you experienced when
It was our
when you-
generation.
when you took this turn.
And the boomers.
Yeah, hard to swallow, but it was our generation that had the biggest insecurity. Was it going to lead to obsolescence? Would it mean loss of authority because people are now more empowered? And we had to really talk to the leaders and really explain. Don't get in the way of innovation. I think if you take it by example, if our president, now the vice chairman, is the one pushing it, why shouldn't we? Why is there a dilemma? The traditional thinkers have always said, why are you trying to fix something that's not broken? It's worked before in the past. Why are we going to change it? And that's already a statement that you should expect and therefore prepare for. So in your communication and even in every opportunity, whether it's a management meeting, it is a leaders conference, you take it up because you know it's going to come. Especially if the profile of your organization is like ours, where the more senior people are of a certain generation, and the young, almost 70%, are of the millennials and the Gen Z, who want to play a role, a bigger role in the organization.
I was just thinking about organizations such as yourself trying to really promote a lot of innovation, a lot of changes in organization. I was just kind of concerned about is this not confusing people? I mean, is there something that you're doing in terms of the integration of all these so many changes happening within the organization? What's the impact of this in terms of people want certain level of certainty, but if everything is changing left and
Moving,
right,
huh?
so how is that impacting on the people's
I think the reality is they'll have to learn, or everybody has to learn, that the world is not sitting still, right? The changes are happening in and outside of the organization. To the extent that we embrace that reality, the better and the easier for us to cope with the changes. Right? Communication. I've asked this from a millennial before. How many apps do you have for communicating? So he says, I only use 3 or 4. Okay? What are all the other apps? There are about 15 other apps for communicating. I said, yeah. So why don't you use them? Oh, some are boring, some are not so boring. Okay, so even my own experience with innovation and how fast things are moving is sometimes I feel my age, right? Because I'm so left behind. Because it's so fast in the way, what, 5 years ago, did you hear about TikTok 5 years ago?
No.
Nah, I don't think you did. But now it's overtaken Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's how fast things will change. So how do you encourage that
yeah.
inside the organization? You're going to have to really embrace it.
So what you're saying in effect is people need to be able to be comfortable with a lot of this change and uncertainty because that's the kind of era we live in.
For the greater majority of our employees, that's their world already.
Yeah.
Things are not going to sit still. They know that. So if they don't feel that in the organization, they also, I think, where did I read this? They've defined career in an organization now. A career is 2 years. That's a career for them, 2 years, right? And it's very hard to contemplate, how do you keep them wanting to stay?
That's right.
Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. If you don't have innovation in your culture, they're not going to stay.
Yeah.
They're not going to be willing to just watch the rest of the world pass them by.
So you're saying innovation can be a retention tool
I think
as
it
well
is.
for talent,
I think
for the
it-
young talent, because they do not
I honestly
want to
think,
join
yeah.
organizations that stay just
That's
standing
stagnant
still,
and
standing still.
resistant.
Yeah.
The changes that we are experiencing are at a degree of magnitude and speed, right? And if you don't create the work environment that is inviting, that is encouraging for the new situation, for the new generation, too bad for you. You're going to be left out. You're going to be the last in the list of choices.
Yeah, talking about that, this is probably one classic example of the resistance coming from higher management.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
one of those exceptional. It's now the higher management resisting this remote and wanting everybody to be back to the good old days.
Yeah.
So I was thinking probably when we talk about being comfortable with uncertainty, you're saying the young ones probably don't have problems with that. If we have to do something about that, it will have to be the baby boomers or the elder people.
They will have to really understand.
Probably
what
that's
it
where some intervention is needed. How can we be more comfortable with uncertainty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the world we live in.
And part of it is what they shared with me. There's a language now that's emerged.
Right.
A new language of the millennials, the Gen Z.
Yeah.
You're going to have to learn their language.
Right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Salonga, but you're going to have to learn
Yeah.
that language. And it's real. They have their own language.
Yeah.
When they term, what they say, why is it that people's attention are short? One of my team members told me, sir, why don't you look up the word trending. What does trending mean? So if it's no longer trending, no longer important. Right? So you have to get used to this concept of trending and their attention span. And that's why innovation is so critical. Because it's, the thirst for new things.
Right.
And they will not be happy if they don't get exposed to. This fear of missing out on what's the latest.
FOMO.
Yeah? It's real.
Yeah.
Or the fear of not being included in, you're not aware. For the engineers, that translates to you don't know the latest software.
That's right. That's right.
To the point that you were making earlier about, maybe training the leaders to be more like receptive to innovation. Ganyan. In their particular case, it's the young ones who are driving it. And in most organizations, we know that, anything that happens in the organization, that's driven by leadership, right? You're fortunate that you have a president, now
I
vice
think, yeah,
chairman, who's actively promoting that.
And it's important that it's welcomed, especially among the rest of the senior leaders, to actually spearhead. You now are, what do you call that? Shepherds of the process.
Right.
Right? You're not decision maker, more than you are a shepherd of the process.
Yeah.
To make them, present better idea, to encourage them to come up with better solution. And you're not there to sit like a judge, yes or no.
Yeah.
You really have to look for ways by which you can encourage them some more.
Yeah.
I think that's the critical skill of leaders today.
Yeah.
Being
Is that
able to
part
really
of your PMS? Like, are leaders evaluated on that criteria?
indirectly, I guess, yeah, because inspiring change is one of the
Inspiring change.
competencies.
Yeah.
because that's important
Yeah,
to
yeah.
inspire change.
Right.
I think you don't if you come out as the roadblock.
Right.
I mean, we will know about it
That's
because
right.
people will what do you call it now? Call you out.